I'd like to thank the school board for their time tonight. I'm appreciative of this forum allowing public input. I'd also like to welcome two of the three fairly new representing their districts this evening. The last time I stood in front of the school board was over 7 years ago as I pled for justice for my freshman son, Tyler. He had been physically assaulted by 5 of his wrestling teammates during practice with 3 coaches in the room. In my opinion, my pleas fell on deaf ears and idle hands. I was met with such statements from the high school administration as boys will be boys, and that these 5 men didn't deserve the discipline I was suggesting, which is why I honestly expect nothing less from the board this evening in response to any expressed concerns that has been or will be stated. But I remain hopeful. I am hopeful that these 3 new board members were elected in hopes for change, that they saw the need for a fresh perspective. I am hopeful that they will serve humbly without arrogance and will not carelessly abuse this elected position with ulterior motives, and that they want District 60 to become more than what it has become. I am hopeful that they came to this position with a strong moral compass, pointing due north and not skewed, that they are not here to just protect the right names and ignore the nameless, that the patrons expressing their concerns tonight need not fear any predictable backlash or immature retaliation towards their families or children attending the Shelley School District for expressing those concerns. I am hopeful that they are unbiased and unswayed by the internal pressures that will certainly present themselves. I am hopeful that they realize and appreciate that there are so many good and valuable teachers in our schools that have lost their voice, and that those teachers and staff members can see that this is not an us against them mentality tonight. We see you, we know you are there, and we appreciate you greatly. I personally owe much gratitude to the middle school principal and a handful of teachers at the high school for the care and concern that they have shown my children during one of the most difficult times of our lives. Those few emulate the kind of attributes that our district could and should be proud of. And finally, I am hopeful that these new additions to our school board can see an opportunity tonight, as they have been entrusted with this position to serve their community, and that they will truly hear the concerns of the patrons, and that they can and will see an opportunity to leave a footprint on this elected position, one of honor and a legacy of character and integrity. Time will tell, but I remain hopeful. Thank you for your time.
Today as a concerned parent and also as a district employee, one of the many who have lost faith in the leadership and administration of the Shelley School District in recent years. In August, I attended our annual back-to-school meeting for all district employees. There we were given a rousing speech about how we need to talk up the school district to the community. My heart hurt when I left that meeting. Where was the be the best teacher you can be, and how about our kids and what we can do for them speech? What happened to our motto, where students come first? How about we take our job seriously and the community will see the results for themselves? I attended a training meeting recently with the school psychologist where he taught from the state's code of ethics for Idaho professional educators. It was very enlightening, and I think all the employees should be asked to read and sign a paper that they've read and understand it. I'd like to read a few lines from the introduction. The professional educator provides an environment that is safe to the cognitive, physical, and psychological well-being of students. The professional educator, recognizing that students need role models, will act, speak, and teach in such a manner. The professional educator strives to establish and maintain the highest set of professional principles of behavior. The professional educator believes that sound professional personal relationships with colleagues, governing boards, and community members are built upon integrity, dignity, and mutual respect. And reading this line of the code is what gave me the incentive to speak up today. The professional educator will provide input to the local school board. My youngest child just began her final semester of high school. I would argue that the environment there is currently not as safe to the cognitive, physical, and psychological well-being of students. I would argue that many of the administration have not been good role models. I would argue that many of the professional personal relationships with colleagues, community members, and I would add students, have not been built upon integrity. I would argue that many of the faculty and administration have no code of ethics, and it's time for change. The extramarital affairs between co-workers in the district over the past recent years has been a huge distraction for the students' learning, and the kids know what's going on, and the faculty denies it, and the administration sweeps it under the rug. The kids aren't stupid, and neither are the community members. Our district has become the laughingstock, and the kids are paying. I understand yearbook staff and senior party committee are struggling to find sponsors. I know we cannot be moral police, but I would argue that we should be able to expect ethical leaders. I would argue also that a strict non-fraternization policy be instituted. And let's talk about the quality of education. In this first semester of school, my daughter's senior year in high school, she was shown the following children's movies in the upper level classes. I don't have time to list them all, but there are many. You can read them. Big Hero 6, Finding Nemo, Christmas with the Cranks, Home Alone, Madagascar, Hoodwinked, a lot of TV shows. Do these shows have merit? Maybe. I would argue that high school is not the place for most of these to be shown.
Opportunity to take a couple of minutes during public input. Because of my career path, the majority of my time is spent in the world of insurance. The lens I tend to view all situations under is the risk of liability exposure. School districts have inherent risks of liability, and these risks are best mitigated by the professional, ethical, and honest behavior of all district personnel. Our district personnel need to be held accountable to uphold high ethical standards of excellence in order to reduce these risks. When the conduct of any person employed by our school district is unprofessional or unethical, there is a measurable increase in these risks. For example, we have had recent allegations and criminal charges brought against one of our educators, and our school district is now exposed to an increased number of potential liability risks. These risks are further exacerbated because this educator continues to function in full capacity in his current role. Because this educator has not been placed on paid administrative leave while his trial is pending, our children are at risk of possible endangerment and further victimization. His co-workers are at risk and are subjected to a possible hostile work environment. This educator is at risk of his own endangerment because of further possible allegations and accusations that may go against him. Because this educator has been allowed to continue working as if there are no criminal charges against him, not to mention a pending trial, it gives the perception that our district is choosing to do very little to protect our children, our faculty, members, and staff. This perceived indecorousness puts our entire district at risk of negligence, endangerment, and potential lawsuits. This lack of protective action to mitigate a known risk clearly indicates the well-being of our children is not considered to be our top priority. In conclusion, I would like a leadership change in our administration. If I can't trust our administration to take appropriate action to protect the well-being of our children, to hold our educators to a high standard of ethical behavior, especially when criminal charges are involved, then I want to change, because I want our children to be thought of first. I want our educators to act appropriately and professionally. And because the credibility of our school district, the working environment of our employees, the learning environment of our children, and the well-being of our district as a whole has been significantly compromised. Thanks.
To the members of the school board, as well as the administration and the audience, I'd like to talk a little bit about our children's safety. As a concerned parent, I'm here tonight to express my concerns in regard to the charge that has been filed against one of our teachers. I know that I'm not alone when I say I do not believe that this situation is being dealt with properly. The time between the charges that were filed and when the issue was publicized makes me wonder if the administration has considered the risk involved with these allegations.
Can I stop you real quick? And I appreciate you putting the time into doing this, but we mentioned that we weren't going to talk about specific individuals, and we have our general counsel here for our district, and I want to hear your complaint, but I wish that you would follow in our policy procedures. We have a written form to do that on.
Okay, let's talk about safety. Is that okay?
That's fine.
All right.
No name.
Yeah, let's talk about safety, if that's all right.
You mentioned names.
What I do not understand is, in lieu of these charges, why is our administration taking a risk with a potential charge and letting someone, or even more than this one person, mingle with our children when there is potential for injury, liability, etc. If you take a look at the hierarchy of controls when it comes to hazard analysis, the first thing in the hierarchy of controls is to eliminate the hazard. The second is to substitute the hazard with something else. And the third is to engineer it out of the equation. Hazard assessments identify the potential problem, which could be harm, injury, or potential property damage in a work setting. This also applies to a school setting. Was a hazard assessment performed when decisions to allow someone, an educator, to mingle amongst our students, attend sporting activities, other events? I hope that it did not get decided by one single person. In conclusion, I understand that there are processes that must be followed. I do understand that, people could be placed on suspension or administrative leave. I don't understand why this type of thing is not happening. It happens in the normal workplace, other places I've been. That is pretty much the policy. Because the administration and the superintendent of the high school willfully allow this type of thing to go on, you're putting our children in danger. When it comes to their safety, the safety of my children is priority number one. Like any investigation, the findings need to be available to those that are concerned, and corrective actions must be implemented to correct the substandard acts or processes. I would like to move that an investigation be performed on the administration to find out if these issues are being taken care of properly. I had a conversation with one of the administration at one point, right around the Christmas holiday. Sorry.
I want to say some positive things. Positives. I have a disabled daughter who attends the Sunrise, and I tell you that the Sunrise faculty and staff do an amazing job. Lots of people come out and pick up my daughter, take her in, and I can't be more happy with the things that the school the district has done in behalf of those that are less fortunate, I guess. I also have a son who is in high school who made some mistakes, and worked with the school board and the administration, and he's been disciplined for his misconduct. And I appreciated that process. There were parts of that process that I felt like was mishandled and was incorrect, and but overall I believe in that. And some of the things that have been mishandled, I have had the overwhelming feeling that there needs to be accountability. Each one of us in this room are accountable for the actions that we take, and I feel like there are some double standards that happen, and I just would like to encourage the administration, the school board, to take in consideration that yes, it's important to discipline our kids. That's an important lesson of life, but also it applies to the administration, particularly at the high school. And I would just appreciate support of the school board and working together to make that happen. You know, in the corporate world, when misconduct happens in the senior management team or vice presidents, unfortunately the CEO has to make tough decisions. And I was in a situation where I had a boss that was an excellent mentor, an unbelievable business guy, but he made some mistakes and misconduct. There was a tough choice that had to be made. I wasn't real happy about it. But now I see, in hindsight, the importance of that tough decision that had to be made to further progress the company. And I think that same principle applies in our schools. We encourage to have the right kind of leadership that we need so desperately right now in the education of our kids. So I appreciate the few minutes that I've had. That's what I'd like to pass along.
We can't say any names, because that's not, or any names against anybody that's had allegations.
Well, there's the.
She can have my extra 30 seconds.
Well,
Or you can
the
give it
problem
to
is
me.
we have privacy issues. that
Well,
we
these
have
aren't
to-
private, because this was in a public hearing, what I'm gonna talk about, so.
Yep.
Public-
Yep.
So this is public safety.
It's not- it's
Public knowledge.
community involvement, that is,
The important thing is governing this are the privacy rules associated with an individual employment. And the need not to talk about a specific individual arises from the due process requirements that are very specific in Idaho law, and giving advance notice in writing to the employee. And so in order to not disrupt the due process, that's why individual employee situations are not appropriately done in public comment. And that is why the district has had for 15 or more years a specific policy that allows written complaints and allows people to name names, and they do it in a written way, not in public comment in a board meeting.
Okay.
And it's part of the due process that is mandated by state law.
All right, well, that goes right along with me. Thank you for hearing me tonight. We'll start my time now. The Center for Public Education's website lists under the role of the school board. First and foremost, school boards look out for students. Education is not a line item on the school board's agenda, it is the only item. My intention tonight is to touch on what I feel is impeding the education at Shelley High School. As a school board, you're probably the first line of democracy that our children can really grasp their heads around, because they are directly affected by your decisions. You were elected by the citizens, and your duty is to take the views of the community and incorporate those views into our students' education. We are not being heard as a community. Public schools are taxpayer funded and government run. We would like you to be mindful of your accountability to us, the taxpayers, and the citizens of this community. Now I'm going to give you an example of unfair, unjust, and even illegal acts where my child's name was not protected. A couple of years ago, my son and a friend were punished for an act that they had no idea was illegal. Their punishment was expulsion that was reversed on the following terms. They were suspended until the end of the semester. They had to pick up trash after all the girls' basketball games so the public could see them punished. They had to write a 20-page essay. They had to pick up trash in the parking lot after school once a week until the end of the school year, and they had to do an assembly at 2 schools. There was a meeting called of the teachers, and the teachers were asked what their opinion of what the punishment should be for these 2 boys, and their names were given. And then the teachers were sent to the classroom and asked the students to write down what they thought these boys' punishment should be, calling them by name, because that was part of the discovery process. And the leaders wanted to know what their punishment should be. I brought this FERPA violation to the school board, and I got yelled at. There's a picture also violating a FERPA violation of these 2 boys in the yearbook doing their assembly. They should have been protected, severely protected under this law. The FERPA violation, if you don't know, is a Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. Our school is funded partly off of that act. Then the principal called the seminary and asked that they be removed from the seminary while they were suspended from the school, because he didn't want them around the students. They were a bad influence and they needed to be punished. The seminary obliged, unfortunately. This is a blatant church and state violation, and I have a letter from the ACLU stating that it is. In my son's hearing, it was admitted by administration that there is no handbook given. We tell our students to go online and read it. And Idaho Code 33-512 requires the board to summarize such rules in writing at the beginning of each school year. My kids nor myself have ever received a student handbook from Shelley High School. You as a school board have a solemn duty to obey the law. Okay, I'm asking for the removal of Mr. Clark, Mr. Jolly, and I'm asking for term limits on the school board.
One of them was my daughter. When she was a topperette, she was hazed and no reprimand from the coach. She was bullied by upperclassmen on the team and sometimes the coach, no reprimand from the athletic director. She was then physically injured by the coach, and again, no protection for my daughter from the principal. The coach and the principal pulled her into his office, kicked my daughter off the team while I was out of town, and I had an appointment set up with the coach to talk to her when I got back into town, so they knew I was gone. They kicked her off the team because she was not an asset, being injured, and her injury was from the coach. She had also raised her money completely to go to state, and she had raised enough through fundraisers for most of the rest of the team. When we brought up this issues before this board, there was no action. We were brushed under the carpet just because we didn't have the right last name and there was no father figure in the home. I transferred my daughter to Blackfoot for her protection.
Board.
sorry, I'm not quite as formal as what you've seen. We have a rule in my house that if there's a problem on a basketball team or there's a problem at school, we ask our kids what they want us to do about that. And if they want us to go and talk to the coach, then we go in. If they do not, we tell them to toughen up and deal with the program. You know what kind of program you're in. And that's how we've always done it. I have been to see very few coaches. I do apologize, Coach Davis, one time. So, but I do ask my kids that. When I asked them about what we should do here, when all four say they would like me to do this, then to me that was important. I too, like Mr. Rumsey, my wife has substituted at the church or at the school. She's coached at the school for a long time and helped in the office, and there are some phenomenal people that are at our school district, especially some teachers that I'm afraid that we're going to lose. We don't want to lose those kind of people when it comes to a workplace environment or anything else. I don't work there, so I don't know all about that, but there was something that came to my mind. I tried to involve myself as much as possible in the sports because I love that kind of stuff, and I want my kids to enjoy that also. And so you hear a lot of talks from coaches, and you know, we got some phenomenal talkers. And I heard a talk one time, and we had some coaches. It was at a football meeting one time up at Green Canyon, and the head coach got up, and it was a great talk, and the next coach got up, and it was a great talk, and I thought how impressive this is. And then another man got up and made some comments, and I thought was really interesting. It's a comment that has stuck with me for about 3 years now. And he stood up in front of everybody and called some young men out for skinny dipping in a pool, and then proceeded to tell the mother it was her pool in front of all these people. And then proceeded to finish that up with, what kind of men are you? And I guess my thing is I totally believe that that is right, that what you do and say does show what kind of person or individual you are. So I guess my thing is, when that comes from one of your own, which one of your own coaches, to ask what kind of men you are, that is my question to you today. With the amount of things that have gone on, if you can go home and look in the mirror with a clear conscience, more power to you. But if there's issues, my question is, what kind of men are you? What are we going to do for our children, and what are we going to do for our community?
In the beginning of the 2014-2015 school year, my husband and I decided to pull our kids out of the school district and put them in a private school because of some problems that have arisen in their education. The administration is so concerned with defending other faculty that they are willing to overlook or completely dismiss any problems or concerns that parents are bringing to light. For example, one of my son's teacher, we were having problems with him reading, and I went to the teacher numerous times, constantly, all the time, and talked to her about it, and finally I asked her, have you ever listened to him read? And her answer at the end of the year was no. He only takes the test, so I go off of the test. We were told by other teachers that they couldn't correct my child's handwriting because they didn't want to hurt his feelings. We had bullying issues with another child, and we were constantly told, we'll watch for it. We won't take care of it now, but we'll watch for it. He had incidences where he would come home with marks on his face because the kids were throwing things at him, bullying all the time. Nothing was ever done. The curriculum is terrible. My kids would have developed anxiety issues because of the curriculum, because of Common Core, and I could go on for hours on that. We have faculty at the bus barn who told us that our kids weren't their responsibility, and that if we had done a better job at home disciplining our kids, that their job would be easier, even though safety concerns were addressed. We had discovered that the administration is too busy covering their hides and that the problems are not only getting worse. This is the second year that my kids have been out of the school district. They won't come back until things change. It is costing us $17,000 a year to send 3 children to a private school. And you know what? It's worth it. My kids have a love of learning now, where before there was none. It was fear. And they feel safe. There have been bullying issues that have been brought up again and on the same child, but it was dealt with immediately, not, we'll watch for it and see what happens next. Now it's fine. Now he feels safe there. If you would like to keep your students in the district, please listen to parents and take care of the issues. Thank you.